This is what your life can look like if you serve God all of your life.
Absolutely.
In some ways, it's not as, dramatic a story. I'm grateful that God kept his promise to me. And so every promise he said, or everything that I ever really wanted with my life or with my career, felt like it may not have come when I wanted it, but he gave it to me. And so I'm really grateful for that.
Some of the companies you've worked for, just from the outside looking in, CoverGirl, Amazon, I don't know anything about them. They might be very Christian, but how have you integrated your faith and walked in faith? And you've done so much in very secular companies, and yet you have a deep relationship with Jesus. How did you navigate that? Most people who are listening to this are working in secular jobs. There's a line somewhere, right, that you just won't cross. But have you ever felt like you've compromised your faith, or have you ever, you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah. No, I totally hear that. I would say that there were definitely times when
Hi, welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we teach you how to live fully live, co-labor with God, and change the world. I'm your host, Kris Vallotton, and I have a very interesting guest today. And oh my gosh, I'm already anxious about your name. Come on, tell me your name so I don't look as stupid as I am.
it's Ukonwa.
Un. We practiced over and over, and
We really did.
I am so sorry. Yes, you can thrash my name just so to be equal.
A for effort. Are you Chris? Crass? I'm not-
Oh, that was so bad. We can have
my name is really hard, even in Nigeria, because I'm originally from Nigeria. Even in Nigeria, it was hard. My classmates couldn't pronounce my name, and I was like, I guess my parents thought it was a really good idea to give me a really hard name. But this, to be honest, has been my entire life. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're from Nigeria. I'm probably the only Ukonwa you've met, Nigerian or not. I was named after my aunt, and we're the only two people I know with that name. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, I have to tell you that, I've written many books, but I don't know anything about literature. So they write it out in phonetic. And I don't know anything about phonetics, so it doesn't really help me. They're like, look what it says. Just read what it says. It's like, I'm sorry,
you're to me. I don't know what that is.
You're dealing with someone who's never been to college. So, sorry about that. Well, well, you are the founder of a company called, is it Zera?
Zaya. Yeah.
Zaya. Yeah. But your background's really interesting. Before we get started, tell us a little bit about your story. Like, you worked for Amazon. You've worked for, I was reading it just a few minutes ago. You also work for Mac Cosmetics.
Yeah.
And you were also worked for CoverGirl.
Yep, I ran CoverGirl globally. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we'll have to back up and just start telling a little bit about your story. Like, what are you doing right now, and then give us a little history.
Sure. So right now I run Zaya Ventures, which is a venture studio, and we started 2 companies within it, and we also invest in other companies. So that's what I do now. And Zaya, it's spelled Zaia. It was inspired by the name Isaiah.
There we go.
Yeah. And then before that, I was the global chief marketing officer for Amazon Prime Video. And I also ran the US business for Amazon Prime Video as well.
What years were that? Like, was that in the early days of Amazon?
Yeah, no. So I left Amazon Prime Video 2 years ago. Yeah, in 2022, September 2022. So about 2.5 years ago, I left Amazon Prime Video to start my own business. And before that, I was the global chief marketing officer for MAC Cosmetics, as you said. Before that, I ran CoverGirl. globally. And funny enough, where there's a lot of drama around Elon right now, but I was the head of CoverGirl when we hired Elon's mom, May Musk, as one of the faces of CoverGirl, and a lot of people didn't know her at the time, and so it was really great to introduce her. To the world, and we're still really good friends. And before that, I worked in a number of different consumer packaged goods, so Unilever, General Mills, Reckitt,
Oh my
and
God.
yeah, that's a little bit of my
How did you
background.
like? Okay, you were telling me off air that you came to the United States when you were 15. You left Nigeria at 15. You'd already graduated from high school, so you came here for college, right?
I
Where did
did.
you go to college?
Yeah, I graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I am a
Oh,
Tar
wow.
Heel. Yeah, I am a Tar Heel. And we used to say that God was a Tar Heel. That's why the sky is Tar Heel blue. But yeah, so I was a Tar Heel. And that's where I graduated. And then I worked in finance for about 5.5 years. Realized that wasn't like and I did it because I was, good at math, good at numbers, and it felt like a really logical thing to do. And then I worked in finance for 5.5 years, and I realized it didn't take advantage of everything that God had put on the inside of me because I also have this very creative side. And so I went back to school. I went to Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. I got my MBA from there, and that's when I started my career in brand management. So I started out at General Mills. I worked on a lot of brands that people are familiar with, Cheerios.
Captain Crunch?
I
Do
didn't
they
work
have
on.
Captain
I didn't work.
Crunch?
I didn't work on Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch, I think, is Quaker, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken. Yeah. And then, so I did that. And then, moved around working on different brands. And then most recently was at CoverGirl, MAC Cosmetics. And then I moved into entertainment with Amazon Prime Video. And then now I am an entrepreneur working within tech and also working within fashion. So we've started two businesses. One of them is a tech company, a faith-based tech company, and the other one is a fashion company that I created in honor of my mom, who we lost too early, and I wanted to keep her legacy going. So those are the two companies that we founded.
that's amazing. So, okay, so you're obviously a believer, you're a Christian.
Yeah.
And tell me a little bit about your story, your Jesus story. Like,
Mhm.
did you grow up in the church? Are your
Yeah, I
parents
was just like, I
Christians?
have a very boring Jesus story. I was born in a Christian household.
A
I was
good, a
born in a
good boring
Christian house.
Christian story.
Yeah, yeah. I was born in a Christian household, and I have been a Christian all my life. And sometimes I wish I had like a conversion story. Like some of them sound really, really cool.
Yeah,
Like I used to do like all these horrible things, and then like God turned my life around, and I'm like, I don't
exactly.
know. I gave my life to God when I was like a little girl, and He's preserved me this whole time. But I do like that because especially when I talk to young people.
Yeah.
I was just at an event a couple of weeks ago where we were talking to high school girls. And it was really nice to give them an option that says, this is what your life can look like if you serve God all of your life.
Absolutely.
And so while it's, in some ways it's not as, dramatic a story, I'm grateful that God kept his promise to me. And so every promise he said, or everything that I ever really wanted with my life or with my career, I felt like it may not have come when I wanted it, but he gave it to me. And so I'm really grateful for that. Yeah.
How have you integrated your faith? Like some of the companies you've worked for, I don't know much about their companies or their culture, but just from the outside looking in,
Mm.
CoverGirl wouldn't seem to me to be a highly Christian organization. By the way, no judgment. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
observation. You know, yeah, it'd be observation. I don't know anything about them. They might be very Christian, but Amazon. Obviously we all know Amazon, and
Mm.
we get to know the founder a little bit on social media. And so how have you integrated your faith and walked in faith? And I guess, man, my mind's just exploding with questions because you've done so much in very secular companies,
Mm,
and yet you have a deep relationship with Jesus.
mm.
So how's that worked out? It feels a little bit like you were Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar's court a little bit, or
Yeah.
Esther and
Yeah.
with King Arzusius or something.
Yeah, I like to tell people that I feel like God has his sleeper cell. Like, because as I became more open about my faith, it's been incredible how many leaders have reached out to me that I didn't know were Christian. They're like, just so you know, I'm a believer too. And I was like, really? Like, I had no idea.
That's awesome.
So I definitely feel like God has his sleeper cell, all through talking entertainment terms for those who like movies. Yeah. And yeah, it wasn't always easy, to be honest. And I would say when I was younger, I wasn't as open and as overt about my faith and about my Christianity. But a lot of things changed for me after I read a book by Miles Monroe called, I think it's called In Pursuit of Purpose.
Yeah,
Um,
he's amazing.
and
He passed
amazing.
away.
Like we
He
lost
actually wrote the
him.
foreword for one of my books. Yep.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
Oh my God. Like I wish I had met him. Like that book literally changed my life
Yeah, he's an
because
amazing
it
man.
made me realize that everything that God intended for me to do, he equipped me to do it. Like I showed up equipped to do that. And so if it was his intention for me to be in these companies and to succeed in these companies, I wouldn't have to be outside of my faith to succeed there because he would have planned all of that. And so if I was just overt in being who he called me to be, and part of that was my faith, part of that was little things like my hair and my love of fashion and all of that. Like it was all of the things that God put on the inside of me. Once I learned how intentional God was. And I was like, wow, if you're that intentional, then that means everything that makes up who I am was intentional as well. And so this path must be one that you wanted for me. And so there actually came a time in my career where I didn't even have to apply for jobs anymore. I would just get calls and I would get a call for the next role and then I would, be working in that role and then I would get a call for the next role. And so I really do believe that he knows the path that he has for us. And if we trust him and if we follow, at least that's my testimony. If we trust him and we follow after him, all the doors that are supposed to be open to us will be open, and all the doors that are supposed to be shut will be shut. And that kind of was my attitude through it all. I was like, I'm going to be who he created me to be. And if you don't like it, that's great. That means it's not time for me to be here anymore. So it's time for me to go to my next adventure. And so just kind of having that perspective changed it all for me. And so I was able to live my faith out loud. And he gave me a lot of wisdom because there were times when I would be in situations where I had to make a decision as a leader, and sometimes from a place of faith, and sometimes there were things that were against my faith. And so giving me the wisdom, like you talked about with Daniel, like figuring out how to be in that situation but not be of it, needed a ton of wisdom. And I had to really depend on him to do that. And I kind of
Yeah.
look back and I'm like, I'm not really sure how I did that. But I feel like he gives you the wisdom to navigate it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the chairman of of an organization that runs a civic auditorium, which we only have one auditorium in our entire county. So we bring in secular events. It's
Mm,
probably 70% secular, 30% Christian,
mm,
or some kind of religious events, but
mm,
mostly secular. And it's so you're always navigating. How do you walk your faith out? And I remember that I think it was year two that we ran it. So we've been running it for like 16 years. And year two, somebody rented it for a Halloween party. And we had our students. We have a school of supernatural ministry here, so we have our students are often ushers. and we bring them in, and they can pray while there's events going on. I mean, not, obviously covertly, but that Halloween party was everyone was naked and it was body paint only.
Okay.
Which obviously we didn't know that. Like should have asked more questions. So we had our students were ushering this completely naked Halloween party. I'm like, all right, live and learn, live and learn. So it was quite a conversation piece for our church and our students for a while. So and it's just been one thing after another. There, when you're working in a secular event venue where they put on shows. So who do yeah, and you're working in that world. Like that's a lot of what now you have your own company, but Amazon obviously not a Christian corporation. Mac, cosmetics, all of those, CoverGirl. That how did you navigate that? Like, do you ever look back and think, oh, I should have done that differently, or did you ever feel like you were? I mean, a lot of people are going to be listening to this. I mean, most people who are listening to this are working in secular jobs,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like there's a line somewhere, right, that you just won't cross. But
Yeah.
have you ever felt like you've compromised your faith, or have you ever felt, you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I totally hear that. I would say that there were definitely times when I felt like I could have made a different decision.
Hmm.
But it really came down to having a daily relationship with God and asking Him for wisdom to navigate
Yeah.
it. Because I think that in the times when I felt like I didn't make the right decision, I didn't operate from a place of wisdom.
Hmm.
Because he'll give you, if you ask him for that, he'll give you wisdom to either have somebody else on the team handle it
Yeah.
instead of you, or to suggest a different way for the team to kind of think about what it is they're trying to
Hmm.
do, or he'll allow it to happen, but you are prayerful through it. Whether it's the event happens, but you get to be an usher and you actually get to pray for the people that are there.
Yeah.
So I think depending on what the situation is, if I'm kind of following his lead and if we're following his leading, he'll tell us what wisdom is needed in that situation. And then in some instances, he'll tell you when to get out of it.
Yeah.
And that sometimes is hard, right?
Yeah.
Because
Very
some of
hard.
these industries are really sexy and attractive, and they're industries that everybody wants to be in. And when God says, time's up, like your work here is done, it's time to go, you also have to be willing to kind of to walk away and say, yep, no, actually, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And there will be times when he'll do that as well. So yeah, there's sometimes when he has you as a sleeper cell and nobody knows you're a Christian and your
Yeah.
job is to pray. And there's sometimes when he has you there, but he wants you to be vocal about the fact that
Yeah.
you're there because you're going to be an example to someone, or you get to make decisions that could have an impact on how the world sees Christians or how they
Yeah.
perceive Christians or perceive him. And so you want to be more open about your faith. And then there are some times when it's just straight evil. And he's like, you need to leave. So it's just like,
Have you ever, I was just going to ask you that, it's like some of these companies are going so, I don't know what the right word would be. I don't love the word woke, but
mm,
just for the sake of having some connection for the language, where they're going so far into, in my mind, evil, just pure
mhm,
evil.
yeah,
And you're in a powerful position in some of those companies, maybe. I
mhm,
don't know about any of the companies you're in, but I'm just saying in general, where you're coming in as into a secular uh, job, sort of speak, but you have a sacred mandate.
yeah,
You're bringing God into these, whether covertly or overtly.
yeah.
Have you ever been in those situations where you're trying to turn the culture of a company towards the king and his kingdom in a maybe covert way?
Yeah, I would say pretty consistently, actually. And a lot of times that was the reason why I was there until, he said it was time to go.
Yeah.
And so that's really where the wisdom comes in, because somebody goes, oh, we should do this because if we do this, it will make us more relevant in the culture. Because I
Yeah.
think,
Right.
to be honest, a lot of times the folks that are working in the companies, sometimes they have an overt agenda.
Yeah.
And so part of your wisdom is, okay, like, why are we doing this? Are we doing this because we actually want to normalize certain behaviors in the world?
Yes.
And so there are certain people who have that perspective. And so they show up at the table. And that is the reason why they are pushing for that. And so that's where either covertly or overtly, you have to kind of fight against that. And then other times, they don't necessarily have an agenda. They just believe that is the way to be successful, or to
Yes.
the way to be relevant,
More
and
customers.
to more customers. And so
Yeah.
what is helpful then is to say, okay, actually, if our goal is to do X, there are these other ways to do that. Have you thought about those ways? Can you include that in what you test? Because we're going to do market research. So, yes, I'm not saying you may be right. That is one way to do it. But have you considered these three other ways to do it? Can you put that into market research? Come back and tell me which one performed the best. And then we will move forward with the one that performs the best. And they'll come back and they were like, oh, we were actually surprised that this other way performed better. And then that is one way that through wisdom you can get, awesome, now let's go do that. And that way it's not that you're putting your faith in anyone, you're actually doing the best thing for the business, versus just like going to what they may think is obvious from what they see on social media and say, actually, there are a lot of your customers that are silent. And so just because they're silent doesn't mean their perspective doesn't matter. And so I want you to listen to your customers actually on what it is they want to see, what it is they want to watch, what it is they want to purchase. And if you listen to them, and if that's what they want, awesome, go for it. I'm not going to block it. But I think you may be surprised that you have a lot of customers that are more silent than you think. And if you ask their perspective, you'll find a bigger opportunity that you haven't even thought about. And I actually found that strategy worked a lot. And being able to just show them that the world may be wider than how they see it or than the bubble that they're in, I've found to be really helpful. And that's where I say, like, being kind of being like I've called myself a bridge in some sense, because a lot of times I was working in these environments, but then I had knowledge of these other environments that they have no privy to. And so bringing that voice to the table actually unlocks a business opportunity that they may not even have thought about. And part of me going out to start my own business was, you know what, I actually think that there are a lot of people who love God. There are a lot of Christians. There's 2.6 billion of us in the world. We're a third of the world's population. And business doesn't think about us or consider us. And I just think that there's a huge opportunity when you overtly target this audience. And there's just not enough businesses that are going after such a large majority, or marginal. I call us the marginalized majority.
It's interesting. I think I can see how you're positioning your business, and I think it's super wise. And I would point out, for example, Budweiser is probably the most famous example recently, right? Yeah. Where they actually did not understand their beer drinking audience. Like, I'm not saying it's the audience of the world, but their beer drinking audience, when they decided to embrace a transgender person, right, whether they thought that was right or wrong, but obviously they did it for marketing purposes. Like, we're gonna open up our beer to a whole nother market. It's like, then you lost a whole bunch of your market because you
bunch of other people that were probably more silent, right, in social
exactly
media.
Until they weren't, right, till they voted with their money. And the brand went, whoa, and they lost, I forget how many billions of dollars. And I'm like, there's a great example right there. If you were sitting in the seat in that company, and they're like, hey, let's try this. We'll open up, I don't know if Budweiser is pro-transgender, probably more like, let's open up another avenue for our beer. Let's be relevant to this other market. And they lost relevance to a market that they actually dominated, right?
Right. Right.
because
Right.
and
Right.
not because people loved God, but because they actually didn't know who their audience was, right? Who their market was.
Right. And I say this all the time. I was like, for another brand, maybe they could have gotten away with that,
Yeah,
but Budweiser did not know their people enough. And
exactly.
I think that what every business needs to do, and that's why I say it's kind of like the marginalized majority. Sometimes it's the silent majority. You have this group of customers that just because they're not speaking doesn't mean that they don't care about certain issues. And they just don't care enough to stop and ask the question. And I think that if they did, their business would be better off if they did that. I think Target is another example of of a big company that didn't really know their audience or took their audience for granted. And they've learned now multiple times that they really need to spend time with their actual audience and understand what they need and what they're looking for. So yes, time and time again, I would see that over and over across different categories.
Yeah,
I would see that you had this huge swath of people that maybe weren't as overt on social, but business wasn't paying attention to them. And we would find ways to whether to nod to that audience or listen to that audience, and it would unlock significant growth for the business. So yeah, I don't necessarily feel like the two worlds need to be mutually exclusive, even though sometimes the business world likes to behave in that way.
yeah. Amazon is a good example. I think I didn't know what's going on in in the central brain of Amazon, but for a long time, if you wrote a book about sexual purity
Mm.
and they deemed that it was anti-LGBTQ, for example,
Hmm.
that your book would be marginalized in their store. And
Oh,
so,
really?
oh yeah, so I wrote a book on sexual purity called Moral Revolution. And so
Mm.
for a long time, my book disappeared, and I would, fill out a claim, and they go, oh yeah, we're so sorry, and they put it back there, and then as soon as they'd get some LGBT comments on my book, like reviews, the book would disappear again. And
Oh,
so, yeah,
interesting.
but since I would say in the last 3 years that it's not meaningful. I think the world has taken a big turn since Elon has taken X, and he's really pushing for free speech.
Mm.
And now you see Facebook and Instagram, moving towards the same. And all of a sudden, the values for what is posted, what can post. If I posted anything about sexual purity on Facebook or Instagram for years, I would be banned. Like I would be automatically banned. There would be, we would ask them like, "Why did you ban me? What did I do?" Well, you broke our community rules. Like, what
Mm.
rule did I break? So I feel like again, we were a customer of Instagram, a customer of Facebook, and now free speech has dramatically changed in the last year and a half, 2 years, and I think obviously from my perspective, for me personally, it's for the good. Maybe other people's free speech should be, in my
Yeah.
mind, like I would love to see that censored a little bit, but it's a
Yeah,
different
no,
world, isn't it?
no, I definitely think that, and it's interesting just being a marketer. And most people that are in advertising or in marketing are on like one side of the political spectrum. And I
Yeah,
actually tell people that the job of a marketer is to be a moderate, for example. And they're like, why do you think that? And I was like, because the right business opportunity is to talk to all our customers, regardless of where on the political spectrum they are. And it's actually rare to find people that have that perspective. Because a lot of times as marketers, they'll be like, no, like my job is to get everybody to my side. I was like, no, actually, that's not your job. Your job is to market a product. And so for you to market that product, you have to look at the universe of people who buy that product and who consume that product. And regardless of where you are on that spectrum, your job is to understand what they need and how your product can serve that need. And over again, there was kind of this perspective of like, this is the right way to think. This is not the right way to think. And if you don't think this way, I don't even care if you don't buy my product. I will completely exclude you. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, what's the business sense in that? Like, I thought we were here actually to grow the business. And so if we're here to grow the business, why aren't we opening up our business to all the different belief systems that exist, including Christians or including
Yeah.
people who believe different than you? Why are you not caring about their perspective? And so that's where it's helpful to have someone that has this perspective when, you talk about diversity as an example, someone that has this perspective at the table, because yeah, you can have someone that has a voice because you already have a lot of people that have the other voice.
Yeah.
But if you have one person that says, have you also thought about X? It's really helpful to help the larger organization make the right decision for all their customers, not just a portion.
It's interesting how many businesses are actually run by activists. I notice, for example, when we live in California, so this very liberal run state, and so LGBTQ, abortion, just all those moral issues that I care deeply about are very, in my mind, run by immoral core values in my mind. And when Donald Trump, when the Supreme Court passed the anti-abortion law, Dick's Sporting Goods, which is a big store in our community, they put out an ad that said, "We'll pay for your abortion in California." And they weren't, they were so pro that liberal side that to this day, if you come to California, if you need an abortion and you can't get it in Alabama or whatever, we'll pay for your abortion in California, Dick's Sporting Good. And I'm like, whoa, bro, if you're a business guy, if I'm a business guy running Dick's Sporting Goods,
Big sporting goods. Yeah.
why
Yeah.
am I behaving like an activist? Like,
Yeah.
do I want the pro-life people and the pro-choice people? Do I not want to do business with both those people? What am I
That's
doing?
exactly what I'm saying. It's like it doesn't even matter where you are in the spectrum. The fact is, half your customers believe one way, the other half of your customers believe the
Totally.
other way. And so I would get the pressure as the head of marketing. We should put out a statement that says we're going to do X. And I would go, but why? First of all, are we in the business of doing that? No, we are a sporting goods company. We are not a healthcare company. Okay, we are a sporting goods company. We have customers on both sides. Why do we have to put out a statement on this particular issue other than having it's not in the core of what we do as a business because we want all of our customers. And so that's where it was really hard because it was like, okay, yes, regardless of where you sit on that spectrum, because you're going to have some people who believe X and you're going to have some people that believe Y. And that's why I said it's really helpful for marketers to be moderate because you can say, okay, if I were to think about what it would be like for my customer, like walk in the shoe, and I've done this to my team before. And let's imagine, I know it's hard for you, but imagine that you are the other side. You're a customer that sits on the other political spectrum to you.
Which is half the
Yeah.
world.
Which is half the universe. I know, but it's really hard. But imagine that you are that customer. And I know you
Totally.
don't really think that way. Now, this sporting goods company that you love now put out this statement. How does that make you feel? And they were like, but it's not the right thing. I was like, no, it's not about your perspective. This is a company. Imagine, have empathy for that customer. What would you want the company to do? And once they can, it's hard, but once they can kind of take themselves away from their belief system and walk in the shoes of all their different customers, they will likely make a different decision on either side. And so that's where, for me, as a marketer, I was like, okay, I have to kind of walk, and empathy is really important to me as a marketer. I don't think you
Yeah.
can be a great marketer without it. And so really walking in the shoes of your clients and going, how would half my clients think about this statement that I just put out? I would make half my clients really excited, but then I would make the other half of my clients feel like they weren't part of it at all. And so, well, what if I didn't put out this statement? How would both my sides of my, I was like, well, they just would continue to live their lives, actually. They're not really expecting a sporting goods company to have a perspective on a healthcare issue.
So,
So why are we making this statement other than the fact that we want to put our point of view out
yeah.
in the world?
I mean,
And
I
so
could see,
that,
Dick Sporting Goods taking a stand on the fishing laws in California
yeah,
because
yeah,
they sell fishing equipment.
yeah,
You know,
or all the NIL issue, and if they should
exactly.
be paid or
The
not, or endorse, like they should have very strong points of view on things that are.
Yeah, they sell guns, so they probably have a strong view on gun
Yeah,
laws. I get
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And and I'm going to
exactly.
expect you to. I'm your customer and I buy guns there.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
but you're taking a stand on abortion? What the heck does that have to do with anything that your company does?
yeah.
Yeah, those kind of things make me crazy. And honestly, they've lost a lot of my business and probably, again, I would stand as the silent majority. I don't protest them. If they're the only one that has the thing I need, I buy it there. But I don't go there first because I'm like, I don't want to fund an activist unless I have to, you know?
Yes, you have to. Yeah,
Yeah,
my job as the head of marketing or head of the business, because I've done both roles, either general manager running the business like CoverGirl or a head of marketing, is to be that voice that says, you may feel individually feel very strongly about that, but I
yeah,
want you to stop and walk in the shoes of half of your customers who feel different than you. And if you did that, would you still make the right decision? And if you, and a lot of times, most of the time, they will arrive at a different action. So yeah, it's a very, it's an interesting place to be for
Have you
sure.
ever felt pushed out of a company because of your views, because of your relationship with Jesus?
It's interesting if they, I wouldn't necessarily say pushed out, but I've definitely felt the energy while I was there. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I can definitely tell when you have a voice that is, when you have a voice at the table that offers a different perspective than the majority of the people around the table, you have to get comfortable with, in some cases, you may not make a ton of friends, but it's the right thing for the business and being able to
yeah,
stand in that. Um, and so it's so funny. One of the things that I got told when I was younger, and I know that you kind of operate in the prophetic, was
yeah,
that, and I don't necessarily walk fully in that gift, was that I was called to the prophetic. And one of the things that prophets have to get very comfortable with is being the only, and sometimes being
yeah,
lonely. And I
yeah,
actually felt like business prepared me a lot for the prophetic ministry, because there were so many times where I was the only one who would have a perspective, or I had to kind of push back against a lot of people that had a different opinion than me. But then kind of keeping my focus on what was right for the overall business and what would actually improve the business. And whether it's in life or the prophetics, like just keeping my mind on whatever it is that God wants me to do, even if it's not the popular thing to do. I would definitely say that there were times when I was like, oh, I would be so much more popular if I just like agreed with everyone. When the voting happens, should we not do it? And then like nine people say yes, and you're the person who says no. That can be really hard. That
really
can be
hard.
really hard. And then they go, well, why do you think that? And then you get to explain, well, I don't know if you've thought about this other perspective and you should consider that. And you may get overridden. Or sometimes they'll be like, you know what? We didn't think about that. Thank you for being courageous enough to say that. And so, yeah, I would say it's probably less about being pushed out, but the discomfort of working in a situation, not all the time, but working in a situation where you sometimes have a different perspective than majority of the people
Yeah.
around the
It's
table.
it can be a little Mordecai-ish, right? A little Mordecai-ish,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
you got a Haman that's like does not like you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And
it may not be the king that doesn't like you, but you got a Mordecai who doesn't
you
like
gotta
you.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Because at the end of the day, the king just wants the business to do better. So
yeah,
the king,
exactly.
if that's gonna make the business better, thank you for being courageous enough to bring that
Exactly.
perspective. Nobody else is bringing that perspective.
Yeah.
But you can definitely have a situation where everybody goes, "Oh, oh, you're one of those. Okay, I know what category to put you into." And then you're like,
Exactly.
why didn't I get invited to the thing? You're like, oh, I've been put in this other box. And so you have to get very comfortable with that.
Everybody who's watching this, I mean, I just want to say, you know, 15 years old, moved from Nigeria, came here as a single woman, you know, just push through. And I just want to say to everyone who's listening, like, you're not a victim.
Mm,
You were created to be a victor. You're
mm,
more than a conqueror, which means
right.
that you're supposed to have something to conquer. And life is not very meaningful when you don't have something to conquer because you're actually created to conquer. And
Yeah.
you're such a great example of, you know, I mean, honestly, like you would have 30 excuses why you shouldn't have succeeded,
Mm,
but you have succeeded. Your parents gave you momentum. They believed in you. Your father believed in you. You were telling me off the air. Your dad believed in you. Your dad's has that entrepreneur, you know, that kind of breaker spirit, and it's in you, and it's in so many of the people who are listening today. And so, Lord, I just pray that this testimony would be the prophecy to
mm,
people who are listening, who are like, I came from the wrong country, or I grew up in the wrong family, or I'm the wrong race, or I'm the wrong gender. Lord, all the things that the enemy uses to hold us back. And I'm thankful, Lord, that we have a trophy right here. Lord, we have a trophy of your grace and of your power and of your destiny. And I
amen.
just bless everyone who listens, whatever condition you're in. The Lord has created you to rise above it, and we thank you for it.